marked 1 month of the Juliaca massacre when police and the armed forces killed 18 people. Today, the perpetrators remain unpunished. Brazilian government set up 19 ministry commissions to combat deforestation in the Amazon. Syria and Turkey continued to receive international solidarity to address the emergency after Monday's devastating earthquake, while the death toll now surpassed 20,000. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Ana Marrero from the TeleSUR headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. In Peru, 1 month has passed since the Juliaca massacre on January the 9th, when police and the armed forces killed 18 people in the city from the southern province of Puno. Today, the perpetrators remain unpunished. The massacre that took place in Juliaca marked the deadliest night of government repression against the Peruvian people, which have now been protesting for over 2 months against the government they deem illegitimate. Many of the 18 killed during the day were not participating in the protests, including minors and doctors who was insisting that assisting the wounded from the repression. On that occasion, a policeman was also found dead inside his burn patrol car, and the causes from his death are still under investigation. Today, the relative of the victims and wounded in Juliaca claimed that the crimes committed by the law enforcement officers and authorities remain unpunished, while many of the survivors continue to be persecuted. Brazilian government set up a 19 ministry commission to combat deforestation in the Amazon. The Ministry of Environment and Climate Change declared that the interministerial group will work to end deforestation in the Brazilian biomass. The ministry also points out that the participation of the authorities present shows the government's commitment to environmental policy. The priorities of the current government will be to monitor actions to combat forest clearing and to follow up on public policies aimed at preserving green areas. The Brazilian minister, among other authorities, visited the Boa Vista Health Center in the state of Roraima, where thousands of Yanomami affected by the crisis in the territory are staying, as part of the Lula government's efforts to expel thousands of illegal miners who have invaded indigenous lands. The defense minister, Jose Mucio, highlighted the work being done to resolve the serious damage caused by illegal mining.
We are satisfied with what we are doing, but we are still very sad about what we still have to do, rebuilding the airport, the food baskets, all these issues that involve this great movement, the issue of the miners that you will want to talk about here. We are concerned about not creating more victims. We have so many victims here, so many victims. Today we spend the day visiting the victims in this process. We have to be careful not to create more victims. Justice will judge. The federal police will do their part.
The Minister of Indigenous Peoples of Brazil, Sonia Guajara, said that conditions are being prepared to create a way of life that will allow the return of the Yanomami people.
So, here we are taking care to guarantee health care, to accompany the withdrawal of the invaders and the miners, and also to guarantee the plan to return the Yanomami people to a way of life with conditions to produce food.
In Argentina, deputies met again on Thursday to discuss the admissibility of the impeachment trial against members of the Supreme Court of Justice of the nation. After 2 previous meetings that serves to establish the work schedule and to receive the testimonies of the authors of the 14 cases that are being process. The deputies committee, chaired by Carolina Galliard, a member of the ruling party, will discuss the admissibility of the impeachment proceeding against Justice Horacio Rosati, Carlos Roncesvalles, Juan Carlos Maqueda, and Ricardo Lorenzetti. The admissibility will be defined by the approval of the process by the front of all, who have 16 out of 31 signatures. If approved, the process will continue with the evidence and testimony gathering states to decide whether to issue an opinion accusation the judges. The Secretary of the Dominican Commission of UNESCO, Jesus Paniagua, informed that in March they will present a nomination of the cassave, an indigenous cassava recipe, and as an intangible cultural heritage. According to Diario Libre, a local news media, also the nomination was made in January. On March the 17th, they must go to headquarters of the international organization to take the file with the necessary documents waiting for the evaluation. The countries which will declare the mentioned products as heritage earned in addition to the Dominican Republic, Cuba, Venezuela, Honduras, and Haiti. The Dominican Republic will be in charge of presenting the project to UNESCO, as it is the countries that contacted the delegates of the other countries to carry out the nomination. An alarming number of missing persons have been reported in Guatemala. In 2022 alone, more than 5,000 child victims of these situations were registered, and at least 1,000 alerts of disappearing women were activated.
According to the Attorney General's office, cases of missing persons, especially children and adolescents, are increasing in Guatemala.
The Albacenes alert systems generated in 2022 the report from the 1st of January to 6th of February, which is our largest report. A total of 460 alerts were activated.
To these figures must be added the Isabel Claudina alerts, which report the disappearance of women without counting the number of men.
In the case of women, although it is true that the volume is not the same as for children and adolescents, it is still worrisome to have more than 1,000 active alerts, which was the case last year.
The number of disappearances has soared since the signing of the peace accords, she points out.
The number of disappearances is higher than the number reported during the internal armed conflict. According to statistics, men, women, and children between the age of 12 and 17 have disappeared in our country.
The various causes of disappearances are revealed, including the following.
We have reports of teenagers running away or being recruited by organized crime to conform criminal groups such as gangs. It has to do with trafficking issues, with migration issues, whether legal or illegal. It can be external or internal migration.
There is a structure of illegal adoptions that is possibly dedicated to organ trafficking and works with the support of the state, she added.
In the past, in cases of illegal adoptions, it has been demonstrated that there was a pattern and that they altered or added false documents. What is not known in the end is what the purpose was, whether it was the integrated family or whether it was another one that could lead to organ trafficking or sexual slavery.
An unquantified number of victims have been killed, according to various reports.
Rolanda Garcia, TeleSUR, Guatemala.
Let's take a very short break, but remember you can now follow us on our TikTok account as TeleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. Stay tuned for more news. And welcome back to From the South. Syria and Turkey continue to receive international solidarity to address the emergency after the devastating earthquake. The number of deaths in both countries has climbed to more than 20,000, according to the latest figures from authorities and rescue organizations. Health World Organization Director General Tedros Ghebreyesus said the organization said expert teams and special flights with medical supplies to both nations. Meanwhile, rescue teams continue to search for thousands of people suspected of being trapped in rubble, but optimism is finding over freezing temperatures and the 72-hour deadline that is considered crucial to save life. According to Syrian state media, more than 200,000 people have been forced to leave their homes due to this deadly earthquake. Meanwhile, close to 70,000 people have been reported injured in both countries hit by the earthquake. The international community joins efforts to provide assistance to Turkey and Syria after a 7.8 magnitude earthquake that stopped both countries on Monday. According to Turkish and Syrian authorities, representatives of several nations, organizations and social groups arrived in the affected areas with tons of supplies. Hundreds of rescuers and volunteers from several countries are collaborating in the search and rescue efforts. Among the states that have already provided assistance are Russia and Venezuela. The United Nations approved a first aid of $25 million for Ankara and Damascus, while calling for the international community to continue with the cooperation. Venezuelan rescuers arrived in Turkey and Syria with tons of humanitarian assistance. The government of Venezuela sent food, medicines, and a group of 50 rescuers, technicians, and search and rescue specialists in order to support the humanitarian work in the affected areas in both countries. The ambassador of Venezuela in Syria, Jose Gregorio Bemorgi, together with the Syrian authorities, received the humanitarian aid at the Damascus airport. The diplomat said that more than 15 tons of medicines and food had arrived, as well as specialized rescue equipment that will be in the full disposal of the Syrian people and government. On Thursday, the Palestinian government sent a train of rescuers to Syria and Turkey as a sign of solidarity in the face of the recent catastrophe in both nations. The Palestinian Rapid Response and Rescue Teams, supervised by the Palestinian Agency of International Cooperation, has headed on Thursday to both Syria and Turkey to help the population of the regions affected by the earthquake. The Palestinian Red Crescent reported that it will send 25 of its doctors to help in the relief efforts. Meanwhile, members of the Palestinian American community in the United States have appealed for the contributions to support the institutions working on the ground in both countries to house displaced families. And Taiwan's capital city, Taipei, projects the words Parade for Turkey on the exterior of the city hall and its iconic Taipei 101 building to show solidarity with the people of Turkey after a deadly 7.8 magnitude earthquake struck the country on Monday. The Chinese land territory has sent more than 100 rescue personnel to Turkey to help in the search and rescue efforts and pledged $2 million in donations. Dozens of nations, including Russia, Venezuela, the U.S., China, and the Gulf states, have pledged to help in search teams, as well as relief supplies have begun to arrive by air. Meanwhile, in Australia, the Sydney Opera House was illuminated on Thursday with a blood ribbon in solidarity with the victims of the deadly earthquake in Turkey and Syria.
And we're here with my family to hold vigil and pay our respects to the victims in Turkey, Syria earthquake. And yeah, I mean, we feel helpless because there's not much we can do from here. We're so far away. Besides our prayers and you know, sending donations, that's all we can do. And that's not enough. We want to do more, but we can't. And we just thought, you know, pay our respects and come tonight and, yeah, hold vigil.
So just trying to raise awareness for the Turkish and Syrian earthquakes and the various charities that we can donate to. So because the sails behind us are being lit up with the black ribbon, we wanted to use that opportunity to try and raise as much money as we possibly could. So we're handing out these flyers with 3 particular charities, but there are many charities that you can donate to, hoping that people that pick up these flyers can then donate to the various charities.
In Indonesia, 4 people were killed and several houses and buildings damaged after a 5.4 magnitude earthquake hit the country's eastern province of Papua on Thursday. According to the country's meteorology, climatology, and geophysical agency, the earthquake hit southwest of Jayapura city at a depth of 10 kilometers. Officials said the earthquake damaged houses, a restaurant, and several buildings, but it did not have the potential to trigger a tsunami. However, the devastated several aftershock occurred after the main tremor. Indonesia experiences frequent seismic and volcanic activity due to its position on the Pacific Ring of Fire, where the tectonic plates collide. More than 5,000 local firefighters with backups from personnel flowing in from Mexico, Colombia, and Spain are actively battling 89 priority fires out of more than 300 burning. Interior Minister Carolina Toa stated that the country entered the most complex part of the week since there is an alert for the high temperatures on Thursday and following days in several regions of the country, which will demand large efforts to prevent the fires from spreading. Meanwhile, the officials experience concern about the triple 30 factors. There is an humidity under 30%, temperatures over the 30 degrees Celsius, and winds above 30 kilometers per hour, which is impressive, could make for a fire at great magnitude. And we have more news coming up after a financial break, so don't go away. Welcome back. The Russian government announced it is looking to increase its gas supplies to China by 10 billion cubic meters per year. Russia's energy ministry said it had prepared a draft resolution to ratify the agreement, which it will submit it to the lower house of parliament, the State Duma, for the approval. Moscow and Beijing signed an agreement on additional natural gas supplies from Russia through the Far East Road. Russia currently supplies gas to China through the Siberian Forces pipeline under a 30-year bilateral agreement. Deliveries began in 2019, and the pipeline is expected to surge its full operation capacity of 38 million cubic meters of natural gas per year by 2025. On Thursday, China described as irresponsible and as part of this disinformation war, new accusation by the U.S. linking its recently downed scientific ballot to an alleged spying program implemented from years. Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Mao Ning deplored the allegations on Washington's instances on exaggerating the accidental division of the civilian aircraft into the U.S. airspace. Beijing urged the U.S. officials once again to exercise restraint to prevent the situation from escalating further and getting out of control. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Defense and China will not accept the U.S. proposal to hold a telephone conversation between the heads of the sector because it considered as a mistake to exploit event and that it is a bad precedent for military relations of the two powers. Trade unions in France announced new mobilizations on February the 16th in a new wave of strike against the pension reform proposed by the government of President Emmanuel Macron. The French Democratic Confederation of Labour, along with the General Confederation of Labour, the General Confederation of Executive, and the French Committee for International Solidarity, were among the main organizers of the strike against the reform. Among the most resistant changes, the reform is set to introduce is the increase of the minimum retirement age from 62 to 64 by the year 2030. In this sense, the Democratic Confederation of Labor points out that 9 out of 10 workers reject the reform, and more than 2/3 of the population support the mobilizations. Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov held talks in Khartoum on Thursday with Sudanese officials, pledging support for the call to lift long-standing United Nations sanctions on the African nation. In the framework of his two-day visit to Sudan, Foreign Minister Lavrov emphasized the need for the two countries to cooperate at the United Nations and to push for reforms in the Security Council. Sudan has recently repeated calls to lift sanctions and an arms embargo imposed by the international organization during conflict in the country's Darfur region in 2005. Lavrov's arrival in the African country marked the latest stop in the tour that has included Mali and Mauritania. Former U.S. President Donald Trump and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis are tied among Republican voters as a choice for the presidential nominations in 2024, according to a poll released today. A month university poll found that 1/3 of conservative-leaning voters see the mogul as their top presidential choice, and that the other third favorites DeSantis, whose candidacy has yet to be announced. Only 2% about former President Mike Pence, who has given slight signals about a run, while former U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Nikki Haley, who will mark her run for the White House official in a few days, garnered just 1%. And we have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find this and many others on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also use us on our socials. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram as well. For TeleSUR English, I'm from the South, I'm Ana Marrero, and thank you for watching.